Welcome back to the Keto Vegan Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel, and today we have an extraordinary episode lined up for you. I had the pleasure of interviewing Kate, a personal trainer and vegan health coach from Australia, whose journey to veganism is both inspiring and transformative. In this episode, you'll hear about those transformative moments that changed her life, going from meat eater to vegetarian, and then many years later, and you'll find out how many in the interview, to veganism. She's a personal trainer, a fitness coach. All her details you can find in the show notes, in the details underneath this podcast. So if you are ready to be inspired and motivated to make a positive change, you won't want to miss this episode. And before we dive in, make sure to hit that follow button and subscribe to the Keto Vegan Podcast. Share the episode with your friends and family, and join our community of compassionate and health conscious listeners. Now, let's get started with Kate's incredible journey. Enjoy the episode. Okay, so I want to know your story, your journey. When did you become a vegan?
So the vegan part of the story, I was that typical little girl who loved animals and ate animals. And I can remember even saying, I can't imagine being a vegetarian. That was all that you knew back then. Girl at school made it clear to me, I was 16 at the time, that if I eat an animal, that animal needs to die. And so at 16, I became vegetarian.
Okay.
And sadly, it was a further 23 years until I actually became vegan. So I've been vegan 8.5 years now.
Okay. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I put my head in the sand for a very long time about animals until I watched a documentary, and that just changed everything. So I'm an ethical vegan because I was on a keto diet, which is obviously high protein, high fats, and that was all from animal products. And then I watched this and I thought, I can't do this. And when I started watching this documentary, I thought, okay, I can still eat the dairy. And then I saw about the milk industry and I'm like, no, I can't do that. So what was it then that changed you from vegetarian? So that's really clear, realizing that an animal had to die for you to eat the meat. And then that step when you were, hang on, if you were 16 and then 23 years later, how old does that make you?
I was 39. I was 39 when I became vegan.
So what happened then to change you and to cut out the dairy?
Yeah, so by that point in time, I had been a personal trainer for a decade, and we really favored a high protein, low carbohydrate approach to everyone's goal was fat loss. And my goal as a trainer was to be as lean and buff as possible, lean and ripped as possible.
Yes.
So a low carb, high protein vegetarian. And like everyone, I'd been lied to. I believed the marketing propaganda that nothing to see here. Our cows are happy. Our chickens are happy.
Yeah.
I bought free-range organic eggs.
Yes.
And I'm ashamed to say I ate up to 21 free-range organic egg whites a day.
No way.
Then I
oh
know
my
it's
God.
repulsive. So my diet wasn't balanced. I looked how I wanted to look on the outside.
Yeah.
My food wasn't the least bit balanced, and it actually wasn't that enjoyable either.
No,
and
no.
The documentary was Cowspiracy. I had no choice. I realized if I'm vegetarian for the animals, I must be vegan for the animals. Rachel, I was fearful. I thought this body that I've sculpted over 2 decades, and it's all about vanity and personal training. I thought I'm going to lose muscle, I'm going to gain fat, I'm going to get all weak, but it's about more than my vanity, and became vegan. And spoiler, it's only good stuff that happens. Nothing bad happens to your body composition when you become vegan.
Yeah, that's incredible, isn't it? I mean, the whole thing is fabulous, isn't it? So Cowspiracy has done it for so many people.
So many.
When I was teaching, I got my students to watch it, and
I'm so happy you could. Like there wasn't some ban or something where you weren't allowed to.
I had a lot of free reign, and I was teaching personal social health education. And some of the statistics that are with Cowspiracy were wrong. So I actually got them to analyze and research and find the stats, but the overall result is the same. And actually,
100%.
if you look at the Cowspiracy website, they address those
They
statistics that
do.
were in the documentary and
Yeah.
say what is accurate. So good for them, good for them. But yeah, Cowspiracy has changed so many people's lives. And then when that Seaspiracy one came out as well,
Mm.
there was so much in the media about people like can't eat fish. And I thought that's really, isn't that incredible how something can be so powerful and sort of making the world a better place? That's really great. Okay,
Absolutely.
so you were a vegetarian and a fitness coach and health
Mhm.
and, very much tuned into your body and what it needs. So are you a PT, you personal trainer as well? Do you
I
have your
do.
own company business or are you part of something else?
Yeah, so there's two sides of my business. The personal training side is kind of half of it, and I've contracted for the last, over a decade. I was part of the
Right.
gym franchise for a period of time, and that was
Yes.
hugely unfun and zero freedom. And so I've got the best of
Yep.
both worlds now where I just contract
Excellent.
and work out of the gym, and
Yeah.
that's great. And then the other side of the business is, I guess, my heart, to be honest. As much as I
Yes.
love PT, the vast majority of my clients aren't vegan, and so that's hard. So the other side of my business is writing books and doing the podcast and everything
Yeah.
online. And that doesn't make the same money. However, it fills my heart and it is absolutely
Yes.
my passion.
Yeah. So that's wonderful, isn't it? So what actually pushed you to doing the podcast? It's a big commitment, isn't it? A podcast, I know.
Yeah, it is
Um,
such a commitment.
yeah. And so how did you start doing that? And how long ago did you start doing that? And also writing a book. They sort of say, write a book. And I like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But you've
Um,
done
s-
that, Kate.
yeah.
So tell me about that part of your journey too.
So the podcast, we actually just had our 10-year
Oh
anniversary.
my God.
I'm in the 870 so far as episodes because I was a mad woman. The first year I did 5 solo episodes a week. I said I'm going to try that.
How?
Because I was crazy. I don't do balance that well. And so I wasn't yet vegan. I had the first year and a half, I was
Yes.
vegetarian, right? So it was
Yeah.
very health focused for a year and a half. Then
Yeah.
I became vegan. And I guess one of my biggest, I guess, procrastination points, it probably took me a few years to actually start doing interviews on the podcast. And I guess I realized that the podcasts I listened to were interviews. Probably I can click to the fact, all too slow, that all these people who I most respect in the world, right? I can email them and ask them to come on the podcast, like all these vegan activists, athletes, authors, entrepreneurs, doctors. I can ask them to come on the podcast, and like half of them are going to, and I'm going to get this one
Wow.
on one time with them.
Excellent.
And that's what's kept me going. It's, as
Yeah.
you know, it's expensive, it's time consuming. I just love it. I absolutely love it. So that is the
Yeah.
podcast. The book came about. It's called the Plant Positive Journal, and it's like a daily planner and a journal, and
Yes.
it's
Yeah. I've
full of
seen that.
artwork and
Yeah.
recipes. Yeah. So it's like my little vegan Trojan horse. I actually had a gratitude diary that my dear mum bought me many years ago. It was this stunning diary. It was like an artwork. I didn't read any of the lady's writings. Melanie Spears giving thanks. It's her diary. I didn't read any of the writing. I wasn't interested in that. I just used it to plan my day to come. And I thought,
Yes.
what if I created one like this, which was equally stunning? But if
Yeah.
someone was bit by year, as they repeat purchased, if they were to read the writings, it's all about adopting a healthy plant-based lifestyle. So I like
Lovely.
the idea of a little vegan Trojan horse just planting these little vegan seeds all around the
Yes.
world. And
Yeah.
that's what it
Yeah.
does.
I
Yeah.
I'm so with you there. There's quite a lot of vegan angry activists,
Uh,
aren't there? But I so much, and it's easy to get upset and it's easy to get frustrated, but it's got to be from a place of love, isn't it? You were saying about your heart, and I think people aren't going to change if you shout at them, but I
yeah.
think if you approach with love and help them find their way, and I was, as I said, I had my head in the sand for such a long time, and it took you 23-year journey and that documentary, and it took me a documentary, and I'd been teaching about animal rights. And
Wow.
just because of my choice of eating with the meat and the dairy, I thought I can't do it. And I actually went vegetarian for a while. And with the keto, they put in lots of eggs. And I like, oh, I can't do this anymore.
Mm.
I was like, I mean, how you manage to do that many egg whites a day?
I
Yeah.
I know, and I mean everyone thinks veganism is restrictive, and obviously it's not. You eat such a more diverse range of foods. It's more delicious than any of the other eating
Yes.
meat
Yeah.
vegetarian for me. However, also it's not hard because those products they're not food anymore. I get an ick, more than an ick. I get repulsed when I think of them.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm never jealous of what other people are eating.
No.
And on that angry component, that is my biggest learning as a
Mm.
vegan. I was absolutely that angry vegan, angry that I'd been an ethical vegetarian for 23 years and animals were
Yes.
still dying. I was angry that I shared this information with other people that I really loved that were compassionate and they didn't change. And
Yes.
then to be honest, like the toughest time in my life taught me that I can't waste all this energy 24/7 being angry and frustrated and sad at all the non-vegans in my life. That is just eating so much energy. It's not a
Mm.
fun way to live. It's exhausting and it ruins your relationships if that's the attitude that you have. So I
Yes.
had to kind of consciously decide to not be an angry vegan, even though it's my natural state. Like I'm naturally really angry at all the non-vegans. I want a vegan world. But I
Yeah.
consciously kind of had to decide, hey, lead with love and
Mm.
compassion and absolutely deliciousness.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so you're obviously all about nutrition as well. And there's so much out there about you have to have certain foods, and having a vegan diet is not going to be sufficient. Now, I know that's not the truth. So tell me a bit, and the listeners a bit, about nutrition at your level of understanding, and how we can be really healthy, have a really balanced diet. What kind of foods would you bring in to a vegan diet to help that balance? I'm also thinking, because I eat a lot of artificial proteins, which are ultra processed foods.
Yeah.
However, I do look and make sure that I understand and can say the ingredients, that there aren't these sort of chemicals. And a lot of vegan companies, like Planted, I don't know if you can get Planted
Yeah,
over
we do.
there.
Yep.
So their ingredients, there's maybe four ingredients, five ingredients in their products. But
Yep.
tell me about what you feel about the processed proteins. What kind of proteins do you include? Carbs are easy, aren't they? You've got the pulses, the
Mhm.
beans, fruits, vegetables, very straightforward. But it's the proteins, isn't it, that people
Yep.
sort of kick up about and sort of question and argue about. So, Kate, tell me about your proteins. How do you keep that balance? What
Yeah.
do you use?
I will say, obviously, there's the proteins. There are a number of micronutrients that you have to be aware of as well.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I made it
Good.
harder on myself than I needed to initially because I felt like I had a point to prove. I was
Yeah.
the vegetarian turned vegan trainer in a gym bro gym, and everyone was expecting me to fail. And I kind of thought I owed it to the movement to make it work, right? If I turn vegan, and it doesn't work. That looks really bad on the lifestyle,
Yes.
right? So I did my due diligence big time. I looked at how much
Excellent.
calcium, iron,
Yeah.
B12, like zinc, and I hit my goals in every single meal. And my meals were disgusting some of the time. I was adding spirulina to everything and
Oh God,
and all of
yeah.
that. So I made it too hard. It doesn't need
Yeah.
to be hard. I
Okay.
focus first on whole plant foods, and the
Hmm.
difference with vegan proteins is that, as you mentioned, they're going to be carbs as well most of the time. All
Yes.
your got my go-tos like my legumes and
Yeah.
all of that. I eat a heap of legumes and different beans and lentils and all of that. As in a heap, like a couple of serves a day. I'm no longer fearful of carbs in the way that I used to be. I
Yeah,
also eat a lot of soy and edamame. I'd eat tempeh if
yeah.
someone else cooked it for me, not really so much when I'm cooking. I used to be fearful of soy too. I used to believe the propaganda that it would
Mm.
it had this estrogen mimicking effect and it would lead to chubby thighs and all of this. I no longer believe that. So lots of lentils, lots of soy. You asked about the processed meats or the fake meats.
Yeah,
I think they're great transitional foods, and I relied on them more early days because the macronutrient breakdown can actually
yes,
be amazing, right? They can be
yes,
super high protein, lower carbs. They can
yeah,
have they can be fortified with like your B12 and your zinc and
yes,
your calcium and all
yeah,
of that. So I think they're a great place to start, and I still include them every single week. I've drastically reduced the amount though, because I prefer as much whole foods as I possibly can.
yeah, sure.
So I've just minimized them, and that's what I recommend to my clients as well. And as I think you hinted at, they're not all created equally. Like, look at the
No.
back of the packet, they're all getting better. They're getting cheaper, they're getting better, they're getting less fat, less salt, more
Mm.
protein, less ingredients. They're improving every single day. So, and they're getting cheaper every single
Yes,
day.
yeah, which is
Yeah,
about time, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah, yeah. And the proportionate, I find, I mean, I'm sure our farmers, our dairy farmers and our beef farmers here are subsidized by the government, which means
Oh,
that meat is cheaper than
100%.
plant food. And I think it's crazy. I do wonder, don't you wonder, how long do you reckon it's going to be before more than 50% of the West or, of the world are vegan? Do you reckon it'll be in our lifetime?
Yeah, I have to. I have to. Given my goal is a happy, healthy, compassionate vegan world,
Yeah.
I'm 47. I have to believe it's in our lifetime.
Yes.
I'm not generally all that realistic though. So who would know? I'm hopeful in that it is becoming more profitable for companies
Yes.
to produce plant-based alternatives. It's
Mm.
all about the money. They're not going to do it about ethics or the goodness of their hearts. Consumer demand means a lot. So as younger generations are caring more about the environment and
Yeah.
demanding more sustainable food, that's going to help companies make the change, but definitely it will be led by profit. And
Mhm.
as you said, the animal products that people consume, they're artificially cheap because of subsidies, and it's the
Yes.
environment, the animals and human health that are paying the price,
Yes,
right?
isn't
We're
it?
paying the price, and they're getting these handouts. And I will say, most animal farmers don't lead a happy, joyous, many of them they don't lead an easy life, right? I
Mm.
support them to move to transition into plant farming
Yes. Yeah.
and, a sustainable business where they're not surrounded by death.
I'm so with you there. So tell me, what's been the biggest battle? Where have you struggled the most in your journey over the last 30 years or so? Has it been
Yep.
other people criticizing? Has it been your own emotional journey through this? What would you say has been some of the most challenging things because of your choices?
That's a really easy one. It's definitely relationships with loved ones.
Oh,
I
really?
don't need,
Okay.
yeah, I don't need to fit in. I'm okay being the odd one out. I'm okay at a restaurant asking for adjustments to the menu, or
Yeah.
like I am totally cool with that. I don't need to be polite and accept the dessert that isn't aligned with my goals or whatever it may be. But the
Mm.
people I love most, when they are not supportive, that has been absolutely the biggest challenge by far. And I hinted at it when I said, I stopped being an angry vegan
Yes.
through the
Yeah.
toughest time in my life. The toughest time in my life was when, you know, to backtrack a little bit, a couple of years into my vegan journey, my
Mm.
mum, who lived in a different state, she rang me and she said, Katie, I'm worried about what to do at Christmas time. She said, your dad's anti vegan, you're vegan and an animal rights activist. It's all about the food. I don't know what to do about the food unless you mastermind a vegan feast and sell the
Yes.
family on it. I'm like, amazing. Let's do that. I'll
Oh,
mastermind the
wow.
feast. You sell the family on it. Anyway, fast forward, I cooked all these amazing recipes. It was a fabulous day. Mum was super grateful, especially. And the day before I went home, I lived in a different state at that point in time.
Mm.
She said to me, "Will you watch What the Health with me?" Now, I had been emotionally blackmailing my parents ever since I'd been vegan to watch What the Health. That's all I want for my 40th birthday.
Yeah.
That didn't work. After the vegan feast, Mum watched it. She said, "I'm going to try this plant based thing for 2 weeks." 2 weeks became several years
Wow.
until about 2.5 years ago, I got the phone call from Dad that I always expected to get from Mum, because Mum was the healthy one with the amazing
Yes.
attitude and full of energy. And Dad is the
Oh,
one that eats appalling and his attitude is not good. Mum had died suddenly. I'd spoken to her
oh,
that morning,
Katie.
and by 4 p.m. that evening, she was gone. And that was my person, right? She was my person, so many people's
Oh,
person, just such a fountain of love and light and
mm,
positivity. And she was the only vegan in the family, and I so
yeah.
respected her for that. And she was gone, and a as I hinted at, I had all my emotional energy was used up in the sadness and grief and
Mm.
shock, and
Oh, it
I
must
had
have been.
no more energy to feel angry at the non-vegans in my life. And
Mm,
also, I thought with Mum I had zero regrets. We had the best relationship. She knew how much I loved and respected her, and vice versa. And I
yeah.
thought if that had been Dad, I would have had regrets in that
Mm,
our relationship isn't that great. And a
yeah.
huge part of that is the fact that he doesn't respect my veganism and I don't respect his lack of veganism. And so that by far has been the hardest thing, negotiating family relationships, especially with my father, because to be blunt, he's the least supportive person I have ever encountered so far as the vegan lifestyle. I can meet a dairy farmer on the street doing activism, and we can have an open hearted, compassionate, respectful conversation. Both learn. I don't make him vegan. He doesn't make me pro dairy farmer, but we have a respectful conversation. Something about the people you love most where it's hardest to kind of get to that point with them.
Yes, it is. It's difficult and complex.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
hundred
Goodness
percent.
me, how challenging. How challenging. What a shock
Yeah.
for you.
The biggest shock, one of the ways in time that I'm honoring my mum by leading with love, compassion, and deliciousness, because that's what
Oh,
she did. And she was an amazing cook. And one of the joys for her when she was plant-based for those last 3 years was she would veganize all her recipes that were so popular. She'd make them
excellent.
vegan, like all her
Excellent.
cakes, all her
Yeah.
everything. So I included some of her recipes in the journal. It's dedicated to her. And just whenever I'm wanting to be that little angry vegan, I kind
Yeah.
of tell myself, no, be more like your mum. Honor
Yes.
her. Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. What a lovely
Yeah.
thing for her to leave you as well. That love,
100%.
that compassion, that
Yeah.
deliciousness, as you say. That's
Yeah.
great. That's really great.
Yeah.
Okay, what would you say is a message that you'd like to leave for others? What has this made you become that's different to maybe how you were before? Is there something that you think that people should know, or a message that you'd like to give?
The thing I always fall back on, that drags you through struggle street times, whether that's relationships with family, whether that's getting results in the gym, or whether that's sticking to a vegan or whole food plant based lifestyle,
Mm,
is the personal trainer in me always goes back to getting really clear on what your goal is and the why behind
okay.
your goal and the huge emotional intensity attached to that why. And
Wow.
then, so much more importantly, aligning that why and the actions you need to take to achieve it with your most important values. So, your values are those emotional states that you're drawn to. For me, it's
Mm,
freedom,
yes.
integrity, and
Yeah.
passion.
Yeah.
And so, once you make that connection and the actions you need to take are congruent rather than in conflict, that goal, so for example, say someone, their number one value is family, and
Yeah.
they see eating whole food plant-based meals as in conflict with their family because they miss out on all those traditional family favorites, it's going to be really hard to do it.
Yeah.
However, if they make the switch where they're like, this lifestyle is all about being fit and strong and healthy so that I stick around for my family and so that I'm a positive role model for my family. And hey,
Yeah.
I can veganize all those delicious recipes as well so that my family still enjoys them. That's the recommendation I make. It's a little bit of groundwork up front to get clear on that goal and
Yeah.
get clear on that value and make the alignment. But that will drag you through those struggle street days that we all get. It will pull you through. And that's what pulls me through, every single
Yeah.
day.
That's so good. I love the values that you have and the congruence with that. That's really good advice. You must have given it to other people before, I have a feeling.
I, I give it to people all the time
Yeah.
because I'm all about making it easier on people to take the most effective action. And that
Yes.
alignment, it basically eliminates the decision-making process. You don't have to think, do I, don't I? You don't have to waste all that energy and self-negotiation and discipline. You're just like, yep, aligned, I do this.
Excellent. That's fabulous. Thank you so much for your time. So before we finish, is there anything else that you feel that's on your heart that you want to share?
What's on my heart is just my best advice to anyone is to back yourself 100%. We don't know what's coming tomorrow, next year. We
Yeah.
have no idea. We can't control circumstances or other people. I've learned that the hard way. You can control your reaction and you can
Yes.
back yourself 100%. And
Yeah.
that is what I recommend for our listeners.
So you just broke up. So that's what you'd recommend for the listeners to do. Well, thank you so much. So good to connect with you and to meet you. I can really tell your heart and where that is as well. It's lovely. It's a beautiful place.
It's been a true pleasure.
Well done for making it to the end of this episode. Her journey was quite incredible, wasn't it? The story about her mum and that love and that passion that she has for what she cooks and her whole transforming people's ideas through love as well. Tune in next week. Find out what the episode's going to be on. It's as much of a mystery to me as it is to you. Can't wait to find out what I'm going to do next.